Hello, Marilyn, and
Uh,
thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
So, when I started interviewing women for my series of interview for I'm Ready for the World, a friend reached out to me and she said that I had to interview you. The reason being, and I quote, Marilyn is the most badass woman I know. So after getting to know you, I have to agree. And so it's a real pleasure to chat with you today.
Well, I hope I can live up to that. She's very, very flattering of me and complimentary, and that's very, very generous, but I appreciate it very much. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, I hope she'll watch this and can just feel the love. So Marilyn, let me introduce you to our audience. So your name is Marilyn McKenna. You're 63, and
Mhm.
over 19 years ago, you started a journey where you transformed your body, your mind, your spirits, your lifestyle, and your identity.
Yeah.
To date, you've lost 130 pounds approximately, right? You had
hmm
knee replacement surgery,
hmm
and your recent ADHD diagnosis has driven you to continue reinventing yourself. You are a healthy life coach and a personal trainer
hmm
and the author of Eat Like It Matters. I love the long title, there's just so much. Eat Like It Matters: How I Lost 120 Pounds and Found My Inner Badass, and How You Can Too.
hmm
And so your main community outreach is on TikTok with your Marilyn McKenna Intentional Aging account. And
hmm
you aim to inspire women and others, right, to find their body fitness and mental fitness.
hmm
So quite an intro. That's my favorite part, introducing, super badass women like this. So I want to start with my first question by rewinding to the beginning of your transformation.
Yeah.
Can you share what was the trigger to such a radical change in your life?
Yeah. I was 44 years old and a busy working mother of four. It was a really chaotic time in my life. I was a paralegal, so I worked in downtown Seattle and was away from home for essentially 12 hours a day and
Mm.
trying to manage, all my same household responsibilities that we all have when we're running a household
Yeah.
like that. Well, and so I had a very demanding job. It kind of all culminated on an individual day. So when I say I had a rock bottom moment, I mean it was a moment in time. And
Mhm.
it was we all kind of have these sort of moments, but I was
Yeah.
had my like annual review, and I was sitting in my boss's office with her boss, and we were kind of going over some things, and I was getting some feedback about how I was kind of distracted and doing talking to my children on the phone a lot after school, because of course I'm negotiating, managing all of what's happening at
Yeah.
home. And anyway, it all just kind of came bubbling up at that moment, that I felt like I was literally hanging on by a thread. It almost felt like I was drowning in a
Mhm.
sea of just responsibilities and obligations, and I just couldn't hold it together anymore. So of course I started crying, which was
Yeah.
really embarrassing. Not terribly professional, but anyway,
But real.
but real. So I mean, kind of impulsively, I ended up quitting my job, which was a really dramatic decision to make, and one that, while it felt necessary, I didn't take lightly, because it's not like that was like extra fun money or something. I mean, we needed that money, right? So
Yeah.
so anyway, so that sort of set in motion um, a bunch of things for me, which kind of ended up sort of coalescing in things that I could change. So I changed jobs to one that was, instead of 5 days a week, it was four. It was a little closer to home, yada yada, and my weight. So at the time, I weighed 265 pounds. And that was a non-pregnancy weight. My top pregnancy weight, I don't even know because I wouldn't let them weigh me. So I'm pretty sure it was up to 300, but I don't count that. But anyway, I decided kind of in those moments after, that rock bottom experience, that I was going to change what I could change. And so my weight always seemed to be sort of I'd been morbidly obese, which is the clinical term for where my weight was, for more than 20 years as an adult. So it was a very much an ongoing problem in my mind. So I also set in motion kind of gathering a team of professionals around me, including doctors and nutritionists, folks like that. And instead of going on, yet another diet on a Monday morning where, I would cut carbs or like eat cabbage soup, or like I did all the crazy diets, all of them. And instead I gathered a team of professionals around me, and I really kind of went public with the fact that I was going to do this. And so I did. I started doing all the things, which I'm sure you can imagine. It was mainly dietary. I didn't exercise at the time. I was never any kind of athlete, but I did eventually, like 2 years down the road, start just walking because I felt so much better. And so that is sort of the part of the journey that led me to fitness. But in those initial, moments, like none of that felt good. It was all sort of feeling overwhelmed and desperate and scared and terrified in many ways, because in so many ways I felt like I'd been walking on this path my whole adult life, doing everything I was supposed to do, go to college, get married, start having children, buy a house, like all the, boxes that were check off. This was all happening in the 80s for me. And yet, like, here I was in this moment in my mid 40s where I was just completely overwhelmed. So I'd been walking on this path, which, at 44 felt like was culminating in a cliff. And if I had taken one more step on that path, I would have fallen off the cliff. So I literally had to pivot. It's almost like I didn't have a choice at that point. Yeah. So that was kind of a dramatic start to everything. But
that
but
must have been terrifying, right? Because
it was.
You really stepped into something you knew you needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And just taking such a big step, it must have been terrifying. To me, it just, we all encountered this moment, and we know we had to step into the unknown. And the difference is some of us will take the step and some won't, right? It's such bravery and courage, right? I'm like shaking just hearing your story.
At the time, I just like literally felt like I didn't have a choice. Like I had to do this, because if I kept going, the status quo was going to kill me. So I, started making these changes. Within a year, I'd lost, I think, 85 pounds. And then the next year it was, I don't know, maybe another 15, 20, something like that. Then at 2 years, I was really just feeling so much better physically that I thought, it was like a sunny Saturday morning or something. My youngest child was, old enough to stay home by himself or with his older siblings. And so I thought, I'll just go for a walk. And I did. And I just, I put in my, what was the thing we had before? Like, it was like an MP3 player or something, right? Oh. Yeah. Anyway, because this was a long time ago. This is 2006. So I, put in my headphones, listened to something other than Barney, which is what I'd been listening to in the minivan for the last, many, many years, and listened to music that I wanted to listen to out in the sun. It felt so good that, like, I started doing it just more and more regularly. And that kind of evolved into, me challenging myself to walk faster, to to eventually kind of starting to run on the downhills and the straightaways, and eventually I forced myself to learn how to run up hills. And before I
Yeah.
knew it, like I was already running distances that were pretty close to half marathon distances. And
Yes.
through that process I lost another like 25 pounds or something. But anyway, I became sort of an accidental athlete. Like I wasn't trying to. I just
Yeah.
started doing it because it felt good. And then all of a sudden it really just kind of became its own momentum. Like it felt
Yes.
really good. I enjoyed the sense of accomplishment. I started running races and eventually ran marathons, and it was just something I loved doing for me, which is not something I had experienced like much of at all as an adult.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was a
There's
novel, but it also very rewarding kind of experience.
Yeah. I think there's something to say, like you said earlier, I tried all the diets. It felt like all of this were
Yeah.
really constrained. I have to do
Yes.
this. But here, it's just like one thing led to another, that led to another, that led to another. It's like,
Yeah.
and this big thing, you broke it into small little steps that you achieved, felt good. And it was like, how about this, right? This is so cool. This transformation that you talked about, like you said, it's been a while now and you stayed and kept off the weight. But last year you were diagnosed with ADHD.
I
So
know.
that's a
I
completely
felt,
new challenge to you. And, when
yeah.
you and I were prepping for today, you mentioned something that I really loved. And, I think we can all relate to is that weight loss, fitness, it's something that is very visual.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it, people
Yes.
can feel it and
Yeah.
see it, right? You change, but ADHD is completely hidden.
Yeah.
And managing it, living with it, it's something that people don't necessarily know. So can you talk more about this journey? Because that's
Yeah.
your new journey, right?
It, it is. I mean, it's definitely part of the bigger picture. And after my diagnosis, which was about 11 months ago at age 62. So I definitely feel like maybe the oldest person on the planet who ever diagnosed with ADHD. But it's really opened up a lot of, I mean, there's some grief involved in like, gosh darn it, I wish I'd have known this a lot sooner. But there's also just a lot of, I guess, self-compassion for like how this has affected me my whole life, and I attributed it to personal failing, and got a lot of kind of external negative feedback about my behavior, about just the way I do things in general. Um, and and it really, it really isn't that at all. It's just that my brain
Yes.
works differently. So,
Yeah.
and I come to appreciate some of the kind of really cool things that my brain, how it works differently. So yeah, it's been a revelation. And it's just been so much fun to explore that and learn more about it. And then the number of people who, like you were saying, like I'm pretty active on TikTok, and I both learned a lot from that and been able to share a lot of shared experience, particularly among older women who are diagnosed, maybe it's like after age 40 or 50.
Yeah.
What so many of us do is we end up, over functioning, a very common trait in in women anyway, but over functioning and masking behavior. So we get so good at those kinds of things. Our coping skills are so good that it's really not a surprise that it wasn't diagnosed. I mean, long time ago when I was a child, it wasn't even called ADHD, and it certainly wasn't. It was almost exclusively seen or diagnosed in young boys.
Hmm.
So the way our understanding of ADHD is so much different now. So the diagnosis is broader, but just kind of learning from and talking to other women, opening up dialogue around that experience has just been so interesting and helpful to me. So I like to kind of share that with other people. In fact, the pretty much the only reason I was like the subject even ever came up is that I was training a friend who had recently retired from a very long career in elementary school teaching. And we were, at my gym, and we were training together. And as one does with a personal trainer, we're talking,
Yeah.
stories, stuff. And our conversation was a little more intimate than it usually is, just because she's my friend. And so anyway, at the end of our training session, she kind of looks at me and she sort of, she says, I wonder, has anybody ever suggested to you that you might have ADHD? And I'm like, no. And I was intrigued only because, like, she revealed to me that her son has ADHD, that she's, as a teacher, a very, very long time teacher, she's seen it, both from a
Yeah.
teacher, and the parents of her students, and her students, obviously. So she gave me some feedback about kind of what she had observed about me during our training together. So I went home and I kind of like was in denial a little bit and started doing a little research. And a few things kind of rang true. So I contacted my doctor. She said, yeah, maybe. So let's get you tested. So I went through a pretty exhaustive 8 hours of testing with a neuropsychologist. I tried to tell them at the neuropsychologist's office, like, how ironic it was to make somebody with ADHD sit still and take these cognitive tests for 8 hours. They didn't think that was very funny. But anyway, so, a few weeks later, I got the report. Yep, absolutely. So uncovering that and kind of integrating that information along with everything else that I've experienced in my life has been really interesting. And just, again, part of that lifelong journey of learning and better understanding yourself and being more authentically yourself and accepting that.
Yeah. You know, listening to you, I'm like, wow, looks like it's probably your ADHD that led to that day in your life that triggered everything, right? Because when you started, you said, yeah, they were saying that I was, always talking here and there. And I'm like, wow, to me, that sounds like that was your ADHD. So it looks like, your ADHD might be really hard on you, but it also triggered a life that you might never have had.
No, you're absolutely right. And I can't tell you how much I wish somebody had mentioned that, like 20 years earlier. But that's okay, better late than never. And yeah, I mean, when you look at it in retrospect, of course, you see all of these, signals and all of these ways in which, your lifelong patterns of behavior fit into the diagnosis. So yes, it's been very interesting. And I wouldn't change anything about the way things that have played out, because what you don't know what you don't know. And and as you learn it, it's part of your personal evolution, right? And so if I hadn't experienced all of that, I wouldn't be who I am now. So it's all good.
Yeah, and it seems you reconciled with what you first were thinking were failure, gave yourself some grace. And I think it's probably, I don't think I have ADHD. Maybe I do, but I think it's really hard when you feel like you're failing and
Yeah.
you have to just give yourself some grace and say, no, this is how I am,
Yes.
right? I
And so
have to.
yes. And because I really feel like it's that grace, it's that allowing for self-compassion that
Yeah.
really moves you forward in a way that makes you just feel better and better as you're getting older, rather than, I'm not able to do things that I could do once, or living in a state of sort of regret or anything like
Yes. Yeah.
that. Always getting better. And it's partly just because of that ability to give yourself grace. And
Yeah.
so it's not overrated at all.
Yeah. Well, this is, I have so many people around me who have been also diagnosed late
Mhm,
or, a
mhm.
while back with ADHD. And, when you don't have it, it's really hard to understand.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
listening to stories like you is it's so good, for other people to just be, give them grace also.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, oh, give yourself grace sometimes for your reaction, right? Because
It,
nobody knows. It's such a
yeah.
tough
Well,
place.
I think
So,
what's true is that all the things that sort of we tend to call them accommodations for people with ADHD are really just acknowledgments of everything that everybody can benefit from.
yes,
More opportunities to sort of step back from that heavy, intensive work
yes,
all the time and give yourself a chance to really rest. And
yeah.
there are lots of nutritional things that I follow as someone with ADHD, because good nutrition supports good,
Hmm.
brain function and stuff. And those are all good things for everybody
Yeah,
as well. It's just an acknowledgement of our own humanity and the fact that, that we all could use a little more TLC.
yes, yes, agree. So,
Yeah.
we're getting toward the end of our
Yeah.
time together, but I mean, I don't want to. I still have I still have, one question and maybe two, but my last question was, and you touched
Mhm.
a little bit on it, was around your outreach to your community because you do it on TikTok. And so tell me a little bit more about, this interaction, how you reach the community, what you've learned, because you said you interact a lot with people and you've learned a lot. So tell me a
Mhm.
little bit more about this.
Well, I think the reason I like TikTok as opposed to maybe some of the other social media platforms, and I've used maybe
Hmm.
all of them, is that it is very much sort of an open dialogue, rather than it just being me presenting information or talking about something.
Yes.
You know, it, it's it's not just that people comment; it's that people that then comment. There are discussions going on inside the comment section
Yeah.
of my video where people are talking
Yeah.
to each other about things. And then oftentimes people will ask either follow-up questions or something along the lines where then I can respond with a video that goes out to
Hmm.
lots of people. And that those it's that sort of back and forth, because yes, I mean, I came initially with some information that I wanted to share, but then it gets richer, it expands, it kind of
Yes.
takes on a life of its own, and we can all sort of learn through the growth of that. um, you know what we all find, either that we have common experiences or that there's a certain uniqueness to what we're doing.
Hmm.
Anyway, it's just a really interesting way to share information. So, yes, I've written a book, but I feel like, again, that's sort of that was a snapshot in time
Yeah.
of, that when I wrote it, and it doesn't change, right? This way of interacting with people and learning from people is just it's just very fluid and constant, and I love that about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I feel like the world is changing so much. Sometimes it's
So
just hard to read a book and just say, oh,
yeah,
but so much has changed since like you look at the date and like,
yeah,
right. So
true.
yeah, this is interesting. I just created a TikTok account so I could
Oh,
follow you.
wonderful. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it is helpful to set time limits for yourself, because it oh my gosh, they've nailed the algorithm. They know how to keep
Yeah.
us hooked in.
Yes, exactly. So one last question,
Yeah.
kind of nothing to do with our conversation, just kind of a
Okay.
little bit to discover you, learn a little bit more about you. So, I'm curious, what is something today, especially since you kind of reinvented yourself? You're such a different person, right? And we all evolve, but um, what is something today that really inspires you or you would be curious to discover? Like, what
Oh,
would you do? What would you
oh
go
gosh.
after?
Well, if I were the kind of person who could invent something, what I
Uh-huh.
would invent is maybe a device, some sort of technology that would give us more insight into our own personal metabolism. Many of us have discovered that, when we pass the age of 40, and again, usually at around 60,
Yeah.
our metabolism is changing, going down, can we just say?
Yeah.
And so I would love it. The tools that we currently have to measure, even if you're like counting every single
Yeah.
calorie and wants to do that anyway, and like weighing yourself all the time and obsessing about it. The tools that we have are so inadequate that it renders those things, almost useless. So if I could, I would invent something, a technology or a device or something that would allow you to measure your own personal metabolism, because it does change. I mean, if you're having periods, it changes over the
Yeah.
cycle. When you go through perimenopause and menopause, it changes again.
Yeah.
All kinds of fluctuations that really run, under the hood. We can't see them, we can't necessarily affect them, but it impacts everything, and so that would be super useful. And I guess in a personal way, just in terms of my own personal growth, what I would love to do is to, just continue to expand my network of people and interests around intentional aging. So my
Yeah.
TikTok account is about intentional aging. So fitness is a big part of that. But it's, that again, it's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Like
Yes.
that's the part that's really, visually apparent,
Yeah.
right? But there's so much to aging that, now, like at age 63, I think is a very different experience than it was for my mother at age 63, and certainly for her
Yes.
at age 63. And hopefully that'll be true for the next, 20 or so years for me. But I really want to, connect with people who are, also very driven to experience the highest quality of life. And it really is based on this principle that I believe in, that I have so much love for life, for the people I
Hmm.
love, and, and everything that I do that excites me. I want to be able to do it as long as I possibly can. And to do that, I have to, take good care of myself and be intentional about things. So
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
I really love that intentional aging because it really puts you in control of that. And I just you see it on social media. Hey, here's this actor in that movie at 53, and here's the actor blah 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 at 53 today. And like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, at 53 you would look much older than you do at
right.
50, and it's just so amazing. So
Yeah.
it kind of it really resonates with me, the intentional aging, because I think more and more people are doing it. So
Yeah.
I wish you a lot of success in this. I
Ah,
hope this interview series will also open that for
yeah.
you. And it was just a pleasure. I wish we could talk forever. I hope we'll do it offline.
Yes.
And thank you so much for being with me today. It's been a pleasure. And, as you evolve in your journey, I'd be super happy to learn more. So we could do another one later when you learn more.
I love it. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Bye,
Thank you.
Marilyn.
Bye-bye.